Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hooked on Sports on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasting streaming services. My name is John Flynn, and thank you so very much for joining me on this Tuesday episode of the podcast. So, we have a lot of different topics where we want to get into on today's podcast because it is the end of March, and there's so much going on in the world of sports. So I'll be talking about some of the latest rumors with the Rams and Davante Adams. I'll talk about the NBA MVP conversation, the Stanley Cup playoff race, of course, the opening weekend of Major League Baseball, and I'll give you five teams that impressed me the most this over the weekend in baseball, and then of course everything the things going on with Tiger Woods right now. But I think we got to start with what transpired in the NCAA tournament over the weekend. So there is there are like a lot of different elements we want to capture with this. So and it is simply a sensational, terrific weekend in college hoops. But I think what we saw in the UConn versus Duke game on Sunday afternoon, the last game of the Elite Eight, for the last spot of the Final Four, that game was an all-timer. I mean, so the intensity, the hype, the anticipation for all this was certainly off the charts. And really that regional, so when we got to 16, you had Duke, St. John's, Michigan State, UConn, Tom Izzo, Vic Pitino, Duke, Dan Hurley. I know, and notice how I didn't mention John Shire's name in that previous thought, because because how Duke lost that game. They were up 19 points in the first half. They were up 15 at the half, and in games where the number one seed was up 15 or more points in the half in a game in the NCAA tournament, the record going into that game was 134 and 0. 134 and 0 when leading by 15 plus points at halftime in the NCAA tournament. And and Duke lost. So the first team ever to lose with that situation. Braylon Mullins hits a game-winning three after Caden Boozer tried to advance the ball to the other side of the court, but was blocked, and led to a turnover. Braylon Mullins, a true freshman, drains a game-winning three-pointer from 35 feet away to send UConn to the Final Four. And I was kind of shook at what happened, because I was saying, UConn barely got by an inferior Michigan State squad. They were up early, that they struggled to finish that game. Okay, we're going to talk about three of the most dominant teams ever, in terms of KenPom rating, all set to be in the Final Four. And and I believed that that Duke was on a collision course to go to the national championship game against the winner of Arizona, Michigan, and that does not happen. So we got to think about this a little bit for both sides. Let's start with UConn, because it's because this is the third time in 4 years Dan Hurley has taken UConn to the Final Four, and and what Dan Hurley pulled off on Sunday. So down 19 again against Duke. And willing his team to win with championship level toughness, with overwhelming resolve. And so you have to make a case that he is one of the best coaches, if not the singular best head coach in college basketball. In men's basketball, because we can have an argument. Maybe he might not be the best in his own school with Gino Auriemma on the verge of winning another national title on the women's side for UConn, but that's another conversation for another day. But it's but UConn has this thing going on where where the program has won 6 championships in the last 27 years, and they're 2 wins away from being um from winning their 7th, as well as their 3rd in 4 years, and Alex Caravan was making winning plays. I mean, because my thought process in the game was, okay, so Duke was winning by like double digits, and then UConn got it down to 13 points, and I said, maybe this game is wondering, but my thought was when UConn was cut the deficit down to 5, I think 67-62, and then eventually, so they cut it down from 5 to 2. I thought UConn was gonna win that game. So, I was ready, to say, when I posted, that reel on Instagram on Friday, so about UConn and Duke, and I said UConn had the coaching advantage. So it's a lot everything led me to believe that UConn was gonna win that game. Now, I did not think, however, it was gonna be the case after solo ball solo ball and Demary missed crucial free throws in the final minute of the game. Because UConn was down 2, and if both of those free throws were made, the game would have been tied. So, then everything seems simple for Duke. Get the ball inbounds. The 10 seconds were on the clock, so you didn't have to worry about a backcourt violation. And they decided to play hot potato with the basketball, and they wound up losing the game because of that. So I couldn't believe John Shire didn't have a feel or a grip on the situation of that game, because look, Duke obviously a game Duke should have won. Even when UConn made that surge in the previous 10 to 15 minutes of the second half, they still should have won that game. But that was a bad job by John Shire. And honestly, I mean, because Duke had a lot of the things, and a lot of the potential to win a national championship based upon how talented they are. But if you look at Duke's last 4 losses, they lost to Houston last year in the Final Four. Inexplicable loss. So they were down by they were up by double digits with 3 minutes left, and they lost that game. So they blew a 14-point lead to a healthy Texas Tech team. When I say healthy, that was when JT Toppin was still healthy, and Texas Tech was in the conversation to go to make a run to go back to the Elite Eight, or even more so, overcome that hurdle from a year ago when they lost to Florida up 9 with 3 minutes left in their Elite Eight game last year. And then lost on the road to Carolina, up by, I think they were up as many as 13 points. So, but this was the creme de la creme of them all. Up 19 against UConn and losing. In a year where Cam Boozer is likely going to be the Naismith National Player of the Year. So that has to, you have to be sick to your stomach, if you're watching this, if you watch the game from a Duke perspective. And honestly, Duke is going to need some serious soul searching after that. And in the age of the NIL, so that I mean, you can have all the talent that they want, but but with all the transfer rules and all that, the redshirt rules and all that with the NIL, so the Duke is going to have to evolve from that. They're gonna have to bring in some more experienced players who understand the pressure of winning championship like games before, because this is the second straight year. So that Duke was the popular pick to win it all, but I did not pick Duke to win it all in my in my bracket, because you couldn't trust them when the pressure was the heaviest against the quality team, like we saw with a healthy Texas Tech team, a healthy North Carolina team, and of course a healthy UConn team. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens with Duke going forward. So North Carolina fired Hubert Davis last week after their loss. So it's something to monitor there. But elsewhere, as I said a couple weeks ago, as I said 6 weeks ago, Arizona and Michigan were the two best teams I saw all year, and Arizona dominated against Arkansas, and you even had Arkansas coach John Calipari say post game that he thinks Arizona is going to win the national championship based upon how much they dominated. So and against the team with a stud point guard at Darius Sakoff, but Jaden Bradley and Braden Burries are the real deal when it comes to the Wildcats, and Tommy Lloyd deserves a lot of credit for this Arizona squad. Said that they had a lot of near misses in the Tommy Lloyd era, but this is the best shot for Arizona to obviously win it all. And I'm still gonna be consistent. I do think Arizona is gonna beat Michigan, and I think Arizona is gonna beat UConn on Monday night in Indy to win a championship. But it's certainly tremendous stuff from Arizona, then of course that they were down by 7 against Purdue at the half. I wasn't really worried about that, and then Arizona put the clamps down on the number one Ken Palm offense in college basketball in Purdue, and they went on a 24-7 run for the first part of of that second half, and that basically put the game on ice. Then Michigan, that they took care of business against Bama. They were up by 22 points against Tennessee at the half. So on Sunday, Tennessee beat an Iowa State team that had just lost their stud Joshua Jefferson in there as well. So you deserve some credit over there. So so the final four we have UConn, Arizona, Michigan, and you also got Illinois in the final four, and Illinois defeated Houston at Houston. Basically at Houston because the South Regionals were in Houston, I just think Illinois just played two A-plus games over the weekend in Houston. Because what Keaton Wagler's been doing has been great. Merkovich being outstanding as well. So and the thing was, and I think I should have known that Illinois was going to go farther because I saw Keaton Wagler. I think he put up 46 in a game against I believe it was against Purdue in it's yeah on the road at Purdue in January. So I think I should have seen that coming. But I thought Florida, Houston, or Illinois, one of those three teams would go to the Final Four, and and that's where we had it there. Now one thing I did say, what did think about about UConn was like if I picked UConn to beat UCLA, Which I didn't because I was inspired by UCLA, but unfortunately the injury bug got to them, and I should have, and I took the cheese on that. But if I didn't take the cheese on UCLA, I would have picked UConn to go to the Final Four. That's how I thought UConn was gonna recover after getting blasted by St. John's in the Big East championship game. So. Great stuff over there for UConn. We'll see if Dan Hurley brings home his third championship in 4 years. Now, I do want to give you five teams that impressed me the most over the weekend. Now, and it's crazy that so that all these teams lost yesterday. So the Yankees lost to Seattle, the Dodgers lost at home to the Guardians, the Jays lost to the Rockies out of all the teams. The Milwaukee lost. The Brewers wound up losing to Tampa Bay last night at home, and then the Marlins lost at home to the Chicago White Sox. But I think going back to these teams, I don't no team impressed me more the opening weekend than the New York Yankees, and it was really really like uh three different themes for me. One, the pitching overall was terrific. They gave up just one run in the three games against the Giants over the weekend. The starting pitching with Max Fried and Cam Schlittler was terrific. The Yankees on opening night, the Yankees scored 7 runs off Logan Webb, and despite Aaron Judge being dealt a golden sombrero. And then Judge hits a couple of bombs on Friday and Saturday. Giancarlo Stanton hits a home run. So I thought it was terrific stuff from the Yankees over the weekend. The Dodgers continued to wow with a lot of late game heroics. It's that Will Smith comes up big on Saturday. He hits a go ahead 2-run homer with 2 out and 2 strikes in the bottom of the 8th inning on his birthday and his bobblehead night. Edwin Diaz gets a couple of saves. Kyle Tucker had a game-winning RBI in the 8th inning on Friday. So the Dodgers bring in Kyle Tucker and Edwin Diaz, and they were responsible for Friday night's win over Arizona. But that's great stuff over there. The Blue Jays just showed exactly why they were the defending American League champions. They swept the Athletics. So Kevin Gossman and Dylan Cease, each with 11 punch outs or more. You got walk-off hits by Andres Jimenez and Ernie Clement on Friday and Saturday, and Jimenez in the opening series went 6-for-11 in the opening series. So you had that, and how about the Marlins? I mean, that I think the Marlins have been kind of lost in the shuffle, and I might be a donkey's ass when it comes to the end of it for the Marlins, but they went 3-0 over the weekend. They swept the Rockies, first time since '09. The Marlins start a season with 3 wins and 0 losses, and three tightly contested games. And the Marlins wound up getting getting the big hits in all of them. Owen Casey, the stud prospect they acquired, is that the stud prospect that they acquired for the Cubs in a big trade over the winter. So he had a walk-off home run with the Marlins down to their last out on on Sunday to cap off the sweep. And look, I think Owen Casey has the potential to be a terrific player. Obviously, because he was such a talented prospect. For the Cubs before being dealt to Miami in the trade that sent Edward Cabrera to the Cubs. So you have that. as well. Teams that didn't wow me this weekend, and that should be disappointed in. One is obviously the Giants, because because one run in 3 games was rough, and not being able to get anything going offensively against the Yankees pitching. Is something to look at, obviously, for the Giants. I think they'll be fine, and I think the Giants are still going to be a solid team. Well, when it's all said and done there, but you want to see how Tony Vitello translates over from college to the pros. So we'll see how that transpires. The Phillies are the no, I think the no, I think I mean, in my opinion, the worst team in the National League, in my opinion, um through the first 5 days of the regular season, in my opinion, is the Philadelphia Phillies. So because they had an opportunity to take 2 out of 3 from the Rangers, because in a series where Jacob DeGrom had to be scratched from his start from the Rangers due to neck stiffness. They weren't able to win that game. The bullpen as couldn't give the Phillies a chance in the bottom in extra innings on Saturday. And then they got blasted on Sunday, and last night Taiwan Walker got blasted for 7 runs in a loss to the Nationals. So the Phillies have a -15 run differential, which is the worst in the major leagues. So look. Look. I told you the Phillies were going to take a step back this year. I just don't think the Phillies have the thing that the team needed to replicate the regular season success from the last 2 years, where they won the NL East with 95 and 96 wins respectively. But I still think that they're one of the 6 best teams of the National League when it's all said and done. But you have to wonder when the pitching and particularly their bullpen is going to get under sort of wraps there. I think the Athletics, so they were actually still the only winless team. They started 0-4. They obviously got swept by Toronto, and then they lost 4-zip to the Braves last night. The Rockies, I was gonna put the Rockies in there because they lost 3 times to the Marlins, but they blasted Toronto last night. And then the Diamondbacks, they got swept by the Dodgers, but they bounced back to beat the Tigers last night in Justin Verlander's Detroit first game with the Tigers since he got traded in August 2017 to the Astros at a trade at the wire. So you definitely need to think about that from a perspective for the Diamondbacks. Corbin Carroll had a triple and a 3-run homer for the Diamondbacks in their victory over the Tigers last night. Those are things you need to think about as well. I do want to give you a quick take, a quick take or two on the NFL. So it's because you have the owners meetings in Arizona this week. So a couple of big things with that. I think starting with some of the names on the field. So Davante Adams, Sean McVay talked to the press yesterday and said that Rams did have talks surrounding Davante Adams because I think the plan all along was for them to try and acquire stud wide receiver AJ Brown from the Philadelphia Eagles in a big trade, but that obviously did not transpire. And look, Davante Adams was a fantastic fit for Sean McVay's offense last year. He had he was such a big weapon in the red zone. And I think you have to give him great credit for communicating with the players to let them know what exactly is going on. So I think still think that the Rams. And I think if you look at the if you look at the futures board, I believe the Rams are the favorites right now to win the Super Bowl. So I mean, so yeah. So according to FanDuel, the Rams are plus 700 to win the Super Bowl, followed by Seattle. I kind of disagree with that because they lost some talent as well. But it's important for the Rams to win to go out and make it known so that they're in the they're in the business of going back to the Super Bowl this year. And the Super Bowl, by the way, this year is in LA. Wouldn't it be great if we had a Rams Chargers Super Bowl this year? Well, because the game is in LA this year, and I think it's gonna be a lot of gonna be a lot of all that. So obviously, tremendous stuff from the Rams. And also with the rules committee, we had a crazy rule. So that was proposed and then obviously taken off the table by the Cleveland Browns. So was that you can trade up to 3 years worth of draft picks in trades. The Browns proposed that number goes up to five, and this be going in dangerous NBA territory. So I disagree with this. I disagree with it completely, and maybe the Browns should be more concerned about what it takes to put a winning product on the floor in Cleveland because it's been far too long for the Cleveland Browns since they got a winning product out there on the field. So you definitely have that as a precursor, obviously, to things over there. Yeah, so we had I know there was a couple of other things that I wanted to discuss. No, so you have that, but um it's also Hard Knocks. So they announced that this year the Seahawks are going to be featured on Hard Knocks this year, then followed by next year with the New England Patriots, the two teams that played in the Super Bowl this year. So you definitely have that have that as well. And obviously the draft will begin 23 days from today when this podcast is recorded. So um and I'll give you my first draft take of many leading into the draft. I believe there are two quarterbacks that I think are worthy of being drafted in the first round, and they are Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson. And I view Ty Simpson as kind of a gunslinger, a solid pocket passer, so who has good pocket awareness. And then you also and I kind of think happy and I think I'm happy for that this take is possible because of what I saw in the Alabama versus Oklahoma game in the college football playoff where Ty Simpson just tore apart that defense. And then obviously Fernando Mendoza, I think I can't wait to see what he does with the revamped Raiders roster. Clint Kubiak coming in, obviously the head coach, and the head coach quarterback coming in at the same year. I wonder what the Arizona Cardinals are thinking about their draft plan, but I kind of think it would behoove the Cardinals to draft best player available at three. If it's Sonny Styles at three, I think Sonny Styles has a chance to be a tremendous player in the NFL, and I think he's got a lot of the tools and the ingredients to do so. So they draft him at 3, and then then let's say the Jets pass on drafting Ty Simpson. I don't think that the Jets should be in the quarterback business this year in the draft because they did trade for Geno. I think so it appears to me that the head coach is going to be entering the season on the hot seat. Um, a bit based upon what transpired last year with the team. The Jets went the entire season without recording a defensive interception, which kind of blows my mind. But Jets are going to jet, so you definitely have that to look at. Is so the things to look at there, and then three quick quick sports things to discuss but before we go. NBA MVP odds. I think I think Shae Gilgeous-Alexander is gonna I think he's on the fast track to being the MVP for the second straight year. But I will say Victor Wembanyama has been tremendous in March, and he's got the Spurs in a place to go on a run in the playoffs. I mean, the Spurs are only 2.5 games behind OKC in the standings entering play today with 13 days left in the NBA regular season. So you definitely have um you definitely might have a case for when Manyama. I mean, the Spurs went from 34 wins last year to basically being the second best team in the NBA. So I think it's going to be tremendous theater. As the young Spurs team tries to close in on OKC for the one overall seed in the NBA playoffs. Elsewhere in the East, because you have Detroit, but Boston's 4 games behind Detroit. Boston has a 50-win season in what was supposed to be a transition year, and a year where Jason Tatum was supposed to miss the whole year. And not only do the Celtics have 50+ wins this season, but they also got Jason Tatum back, and I think it's gonna be there, right there, and everything is there obviously for Boston to get the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. The Knicks clinched the playoff spot last night by virtue of the 76ers losing at home. But the Knicks are 2 games behind Boston for the 3 seed, and then Cleveland, Toronto, Atlanta round out the teams currently in playoff positioning in the Eastern Conference, and then you already know the 20 teams that will be playing beyond at the end of the regular season because you basically now have 10 teams basically tanking for um for um for draft positioning in a deep draft class. So we're gonna see how that transpires as well. Now a quick rundown on the Stanley Cup a playoff race, and I mean because you've had some tremendous runs by teams like the Flyers recently, because the Flyers have won 8 of the last 10 games, and they're only a couple of points behind in the wild card. So the race is going to be unbelievable down the stretch of the season. Because you think about Boston, Montreal, and Pittsburgh made a huge statement last night. They absolutely destroyed the Islanders. One of the most consequential games of the season to date. So that the Penguins scored the last 7 goals of the game to give them an 8-3 victory and put them back in second place in the Metropolitan Division. And look, this should be a season where the Islanders should be celebrated, but but I'm just preparing the Isles fans for the possibility that this team does not make the playoffs because they have an insanely tough schedule. They still have 3 more back-to-backs. The first of those 3 concludes tonight. I have to go to Buffalo to take on the Sabres, a team that is the second best record in the Eastern Conference, or I should say the third, because they have one fewer game to play than both Tampa and Carolina. So that's gonna be something you have to you're gonna have to look at. But Columbus is a team to watch as well, and then you also got to wonder about Ottawa and Detroit. So the Eastern Conference is turning into a bloodbath this year in terms of the competition. Wales in comparison to the Western Conference, where only 3 teams have 90 plus points on the season. And only 4 teams in the Western Conference have 86 or more points. So whereas you have 10 teams that have that number in the Eastern Conference. So definitely on that as well. And then just a couple of weeks before the Masters, Tiger Woods arrested for driving under the influence on a DWI crash. So this is the third time in the last 10 years Tiger Woods has been involved in a driving incident. So I certainly hope he gets the help he needs, and hopefully nobody will trust him to drive for the foreseeable future on that one. So that's gonna do it for this edition of Hooked on Sports. Thank you so very much for listening, obviously. I'm looking to be back next week. Looking forward to having a good Easter holiday. Thank you so very much for listening, and I'll be back here on the podcast next Tuesday. Everybody, take care, everybody, and so.